The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training compound as Sarah Martinez adjusted her grip on the assault rifle. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool desert air. Around her, 12 other recruits stood in formation, their faces showing various degrees of confidence and anxiety. Today was the day that would determine who among them would advance to specialized combat training. Sergeant Thompson paced in front of the group, his weathered face stern and unforgiving. He had seen thousands of recruits come through this program over his 20-year career, and he could usually predict within minutes who would make it and who would wash out. His eyes lingered on Sarah for a moment longer than the others, not with encouragement, but with barely concealed skepticism. Sarah had heard the whispers since the day she arrived at the training facility 3 months ago. At 5 feet 4 inches and barely 120 pounds, she looked more like a college student than a soldier. The other recruits, mostly men who towered over her, had initially tried to be protective. But as weeks passed and Sarah consistently outperformed many of them in marksmanship, endurance, and tactical thinking, protection turned to resentment. The doubts weren't limited to her fellow recruits. During her first week, she had overheard 2 instructors discussing her placement in the program. One had suggested she might be better suited for communications or logistics, anything that didn't involve direct combat. The other had been more blunt, stating that putting someone like her in a combat role would be dangerous for everyone involved. These comments only fueled Sarah's determination. She had grown up in a small Texas town where her father ran a gun shop and shooting range. From the age of 8, she had been handling firearms with a precision that amazed customers. Her father, a former Marine, had taught her that size meant nothing if you had skill, discipline, and the right mindset. But the military seemed to have different ideas about what made an effective soldier. Sergeant Thompson stopped pacing and faced the group. Today's exercise would test their ability to handle fully automatic weapons under pressure. Each recruit would be given a single magazine containing 30 rounds and would face a course designed to simulate urban combat conditions. Targets would appear at various distances and angles, requiring quick reflexes and accurate shooting. The twist was that they would be moving through the course at a run, with obstacles designed to throw off their balance and concentration. As Thompson explained the rules, Sarah noticed several recruits glancing in her direction. She had excelled with semi-automatic weapons, but full auto was different. The recoil was more intense, the weapon harder to control, and ammunition management became critical. One recruit, Jackson, a former football player from Alabama, shook his head slightly when he looked at her. His expression clearly conveyed his belief that she would struggle with the more powerful weapon. The course itself was intimidating. It stretched across 200 yards of varied terrain, including a mock urban environment with building facades, windows, and doorways where targets would appear. Some targets were marked as enemies, others as civilians. Hitting a civilian target would result in immediate disqualification. The entire course had to be completed in under 4 minutes, with points awarded for accuracy, speed, and ammunition conservation. Sarah watched as the first few recruits attempted the course. Jackson went third, charging through with brute force and aggression. His shots were powerful but scattered, and he emptied his magazine before reaching the halfway point. He emerged from the course frustrated and embarrassed, having missed several key targets while burning through ammunition. The instructors' faces showed disappointment but not surprise. When Sarah's turn approached, Sergeant Thompson pulled her aside. His voice was low but firm as he spoke to her privately. He explained that this exercise had a high failure rate and that there was no shame in recognizing one's limitations. He suggested that she might want to consider requesting a transfer to a different military occupation specialty before attempting the course. His words were meant to be helpful, but Sarah could hear the underlying assumption that she wasn't capable of succeeding. Standing at the starting line, Sarah closed her eyes for a moment and recalled her father's teachings. He had always emphasized that shooting wasn't about power or size, but about understanding the weapon, reading the environment, and maintaining control under pressure. She thought about all the times she had proven doubters wrong. From her first shooting competition at age 12, to her graduation from basic training with the highest marksmanship scores in her class. The starting whistle blew, and Sarah began moving through the course. Unlike the previous recruits who had charged ahead aggressively, she maintained a steady, measured pace. Her movements were fluid and controlled, each step calculated to maintain balance and stability. When the first target appeared from a second-story window, she raised her weapon smoothly and fired a short, controlled burst. The target dropped immediately. As she progressed through the course, Sarah's approach became evident to the watching instructors. While other recruits had relied on overwhelming firepower, she was using precision and economy. Each burst was exactly what was needed, no more, no less. She moved through the mock urban environment like someone who understood not just how to shoot, but how to fight intelligently. The targets came faster now, appearing from unexpected angles and distances. Sarah's responses were instantaneous but never rushed. She seemed to anticipate where targets would appear, positioning herself for optimal shooting angles while maintaining forward momentum. Her ammunition count remained high even as she consistently hit her marks. Halfway through the course, a complex scenario presented itself. 3 targets appeared simultaneously at different elevations and distances, with a civilian target mixed among them. Other recruits had struggled with this section, either missing the threats or accidentally engaging the civilian. Sarah processed the situation in a split second, adjusting her position to create a clear line of sight to all 3 enemy targets while avoiding the civilian. 3 short bursts later, all threats were eliminated. The watching instructors began to take notice. Sergeant Thompson found himself leaning forward, his skepticism gradually being replaced by professional interest. This wasn't just good shooting. This was tactical thinking under pressure. Sarah was demonstrating exactly the kind of decision-making and weapons handling that separated exceptional soldiers from merely adequate ones. As Sarah approached the final section of the course, her ammunition count showed she still had over half her magazine remaining. The final challenge was designed to be the most difficult, with multiple targets appearing in rapid succession from both ground level and elevated positions. It was here that most recruits either ran out of ammunition or became overwhelmed by the complexity of the engagement. The targets began appearing, and Sarah's response was like watching a masterclass in combat shooting. Her movements were economical and precise, each shot placed exactly where it needed to be. She was no longer just completing the exercise. She was demonstrating a level of skill that few recruits ever achieved, regardless of their size or background. The final targets fell in rapid succession, each one eliminated with surgical precision. When the course timer stopped, an unusual silence settled over the training ground. Sarah emerged from the final section, her weapon lowered but ready, her breathing controlled despite having just completed the most challenging exercise in the program. The ammunition counter on her weapon showed she had used only 18 of her 30 rounds, leaving 12 unused. Sergeant Thompson stared at the stopwatch in his hand, then looked at the scoring tablet where target hits were automatically recorded. He blinked twice, certain there had to be an error. According to the electronic scoring system, Sarah had achieved a perfect hit rate on all enemy targets while completely avoiding civilian casualties. Her time of 3 minutes and 42 seconds was not just passing, it was the fastest completion time he had seen in over 2 years. The other recruits gathered around as Thompson called out the results. Jackson's mouth hung open in disbelief. He had been certain that Sarah would struggle with the recoil and weight of the fully automatic weapon. Instead, she had not only controlled it perfectly, but had demonstrated a level of marksmanship that made his own attempt look clumsy and wasteful. Several other recruits who had failed the course looked equally stunned. Thompson approached Sarah with a mixture of professional respect and personal surprise. He had been wrong about her capabilities, and as a career military man, he was not too proud to admit it. He asked her to demonstrate her weapon handling technique for the other recruits, turning what could have been a moment of personal vindication into a teaching opportunity. Sarah complied without arrogance, breaking down her approach into components that others could understand and potentially emulate. As she explained her methodology, it became clear that Sarah's success wasn't just natural talent. She had developed a systematic approach to combat shooting that emphasized efficiency over power. She talked about reading the environment, managing ammunition as a finite resource, and maintaining situational awareness even under pressure. Her explanations were clear and practical, showing a depth of understanding that impressed even the instructors. Word of Sarah's performance spread quickly through the training facility. By evening, instructors from other programs were asking to see the footage from her course run. The base commander, Colonel Morrison, requested a meeting with her the following morning. Such direct attention from senior officers was unusual for a recruit still in training, but Sarah's demonstration had caught the attention of people who understood its implications. The next morning, Sarah found herself sitting across from Colonel Morrison in his office. He was a decorated combat veteran with 3 tours in active war zones, and his opinion carried significant weight in determining which soldiers received advanced training opportunities. Morrison had reviewed the footage from her course multiple times and had questions about her background and training philosophy. Morrison explained that the military was constantly seeking soldiers who could operate effectively in complex environments where precision was more valuable than overwhelming firepower. Urban combat scenarios, hostage situations, and operations requiring minimal collateral damage all demanded the kind of skills Sarah had demonstrated. He asked if she would be interested in additional specialized training that would take her far beyond standard infantry qualification. Sarah accepted without hesitation. She had joined the military not just to serve her country, but to push herself to become the best soldier she could be. The opportunity to receive advanced training was exactly what she had hoped for when she enlisted. Morrison explained that her next phase of training would be more demanding than anything she had experienced so far. But based on her performance, he believed she was ready for the challenge. The specialized training program was conducted at a different facility, one where the standards were higher and the expectations more demanding. Sarah found herself among a select group of soldiers who had all demonstrated exceptional abilities in their basic training. Unlike her previous experience, here she was judged purely on performance rather than assumptions about her physical appearance. Her new instructor was Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a special operations veteran who had trained some of the military's most elite units. Rodriguez had seen Sarah's training footage and was interested in developing her skills further. He explained that what she had demonstrated was just the beginning, and that truly effective combat soldiers needed to master a much broader range of skills and scenarios. The advanced program combined marksmanship with tactical movement, urban warfare techniques, and complex decision-making under extreme pressure. Sarah thrived in this environment, where her analytical approach to combat problems was valued and encouraged. She learned to operate in teams, coordinate with air support, and handle situations where split-second decisions could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah's unit was tasked with clearing a building complex while minimizing civilian casualties. The scenario involved multiple floors, unknown numbers of enemies, and the possibility of civilian hostages in various locations. Other teams had struggled with this exercise, often either moving too slowly and losing the element of surprise or moving too quickly and making critical errors. Sarah's team took a different approach. Using her marksmanship skills as a foundation, they developed a systematic method for clearing each room with maximum efficiency and minimum risk. Sarah's role was to provide precise cover fire while her teammates moved through the building. Her ability to place accurate shots at close range in confined spaces proved invaluable in maintaining team safety while completing the mission objectives. The exercise concluded with Sarah's team achieving the fastest completion time while maintaining perfect safety records for both team members and simulated civilians. Master Sergeant Rodriguez noted that Sarah had become not just an exceptional individual marksman, but an effective team member who enhanced the capabilities of everyone around her. This ability to improve team performance was considered one of the most valuable traits in special operations personnel. As her training progressed, Sarah began to understand that her early critics had been focusing on the wrong things entirely. Physical size and strength were important in some aspects of military service, but in modern combat operations, intelligence, precision, and tactical thinking were often more valuable. Her success wasn't despite her size, but because she had learned to maximize her strengths while minimizing the importance of traditional physical advantages. Rodriguez began assigning Sarah increasingly complex scenarios that tested not just her shooting ability, but her leadership potential. In one exercise, she was placed in command of a mixed unit, tasked with defending a position against a numerically superior enemy force. The scenario was designed to test her ability to make tactical decisions under pressure, while coordinating the actions of multiple team members. Sarah's approach to leadership reflected the same. principles she applied to marksmanship. She emphasized efficiency, clear communication, and making every action count toward the mission objective. Rather than trying to outfight the enemy through brute force, she developed a defensive strategy that used positioning and precision to neutralize threats while conserving ammunition and minimizing casualties among her own forces. Months of intensive training had transformed Sarah from a skilled recruit into a formidable soldier. Her reputation within the specialized training program had grown steadily, and she was now being considered for assignment to an elite unit that handled the military's most challenging missions. The selection process for this unit was notorious for its difficulty, with failure rates exceeding 90% even among highly qualified candidates. The final evaluation took place over a grueling week-long exercise in a remote mountain facility. Candidates were subjected to sleep deprivation, limited food, extreme weather conditions, and constant pressure from instructors designed to test their mental resilience as much as their physical and tactical skills. Sarah found herself among 12 candidates, all of whom had distinguished themselves in previous training programs. On the third day of the evaluation, candidates were presented with their most challenging scenario yet. Intelligence reports indicated that a terrorist cell had taken control of a remote compound and was holding civilian hostages. The compound was heavily fortified with multiple buildings, elevated firing positions, and an unknown number of enemy combatants. Reconnaissance suggested that the terrorists were well armed and prepared for a siege. The mission briefing revealed additional complications. The terrorists had threatened to execute hostages if any rescue attempt was detected, meaning that stealth and precision were essential. The compound's layout provided numerous hiding spots for enemies, and the hostages were believed to be scattered throughout multiple buildings. Any rescue attempt would need to neutralize all threats quickly while ensuring hostage safety. Sarah studied the intelligence reports carefully, noting details that other candidates seemed to overlook. The compound's construction provided natural choke points that could be used to control enemy movement. The positioning of the buildings created sight lines that a skilled marksman could exploit to provide cover for advancing teammates. Most importantly, the enemy's defensive preparations appeared to be focused on repelling a large-scale assault rather than preventing infiltration by a small, precise team. When the mission planning phase began, Sarah volunteered to take point on developing the tactical approach. Her analysis of the compound's layout had revealed a possible infiltration route that would allow a small team to enter undetected and begin systematically clearing buildings. The key was to eliminate sentries silently before they could alert the main enemy force, then move through the compound with such speed and precision that organized resistance would be impossible. The other candidates initially expressed skepticism about Sarah's plan. It required exceptional marksmanship skills and perfect coordination between team members. One mistake, one missed shot, or one moment of hesitation could compromise the entire mission and result in hostage casualties. Several candidates argued for a more conventional approach that relied on overwhelming firepower and direct assault. Master Sergeant Rodriguez observed the planning session without comment, allowing the candidates to work through their disagreements themselves. This was part of the evaluation process, testing their ability to function as a team under pressure while developing effective solutions to complex problems. Leadership qualities were being assessed alongside tactical skills and individual performance. Sarah defended her plan by walking through each phase in detail, explaining how her approach would minimize risk to hostages while maximizing the chances of mission success. She demonstrated her understanding of the compound's layout by identifying specific firing positions, escape routes, and potential complications. Her presentation was thorough and professional, addressing the concerns raised by other candidates while maintaining confidence in her overall strategy. Eventually, the team agreed to attempt Sarah's plan with modifications suggested by other team members. The final approach combined her infiltration strategy with backup plans for dealing with unexpected complications. Each team member was assigned specific responsibilities based on their individual strengths, with Sarah designated as the primary marksman responsible for neutralizing long-range threats and providing overwatch for the team's movement. The exercise began at dawn. With the team moving into position around the compound, Sarah took up a concealed position on a rocky outcrop that provided clear sightlines to multiple areas of the compound while remaining hidden from enemy observation. From this position, She could cover her teammates' advance while identifying and engaging threats as they appeared. The first phase of the mission required eliminating perimeter guards without alerting the main enemy force. Sarah's role was critical here, as any guard who managed to raise an alarm could compromise the entire operation. Using a suppressed weapon, she began systematically neutralizing sentries with single, precisely placed shots. Each engagement required careful calculation of wind conditions, distance, and timing to ensure clean eliminations. As her teammates moved closer to the compound, Sarah continued providing overwatch while scanning for additional threats. The enemy's defensive positions were exactly as she had predicted from studying the intelligence reports. Guards were positioned to repel a frontal assault, but were vulnerable to the indirect approach her team was using. Her advanced preparation was proving valuable in maintaining the element of surprise. The team reached the first building without being detected, and the systematic clearing process began. Sarah's position allowed her to monitor multiple buildings simultaneously, while providing covering fire when needed. As her teammates moved through the compound, she coordinated their movements by radio, alerting them to enemy positions and potential hazards that were visible from her elevated position. When the team encountered their first group of hostages, the mission's complexity increased significantly. The hostages were frightened and confused, requiring careful handling to prevent them from inadvertently alerting nearby enemies. Sarah maintained her overwatch position, while teammates secured the hostages and prepared to move them to safety. Her role shifted from active engagement to protective surveillance, ensuring that no enemy reinforcements could threaten the rescue operation. The second building presented a more challenging scenario. Intelligence reports had indicated the presence of multiple enemies and additional hostages, but the exact layout remained unknown. Sarah's teammates would need to clear the building systematically while she provided external security and dealt with any enemies who attempted to escape or call for reinforcements. As her team entered the building, Sarah detected movement in a third structure that hadn't been part of the initial plan. Enemy reinforcements were positioning themselves to ambush her teammates when they emerged from the second building. This was exactly the kind of unexpected development that separated successful missions from catastrophic failures. Sarah's response would determine whether the exercise continued or ended in simulated disaster. Without hesitation, Sarah began engaging the newly identified threats. Her shooting was precise and methodical, eliminating enemies before they could establish effective firing positions. The suppressed nature of her weapon meant that enemies in other parts of the compound remained unaware of her actions, preserving the element of surprise for her teammates who were still clearing the building. The engagement demonstrated everything Sarah had learned about combat shooting under pressure. She managed her ammunition carefully, took only shots she was confident of making, and maintained awareness of her teammates' positions to avoid any possibility of friendly fire. Each shot was deliberate and effective, reducing enemy strength while maintaining her own concealment and security. The situation in the compound escalated rapidly, as Sarah's teammates discovered that the intelligence reports had significantly underestimated the number of enemies present. What was supposed to be a dozen terrorists turned out to be nearly 30, with several additional fighters arriving as reinforcements during the operation. The exercise had evolved from a challenging scenario into an almost impossible one, designed to test candidates beyond their apparent limits. Sarah watched through her scope as enemy fighters began coordinating a response to the rescue attempt. Her teammates were now trapped in the second building with rescued hostages, unable to move forward or retreat without exposing themselves to concentrated enemy fire. The original plan was no longer viable, and immediate tactical adjustments were necessary to prevent mission failure and simulated casualties. From her elevated position, Sarah could see the entire compound layout and enemy movement patterns. The terrorists were positioning themselves to create overlapping fields of fire that would make movement between buildings extremely dangerous. However, their focus on containing her teammates in the second building had created vulnerabilities elsewhere that a skilled marksman could exploit. Sarah made a critical decision that would define the remainder of the exercise. Rather than maintaining her overwatch position and waiting for her teammates to develop a new plan, she chose to take aggressive action to disrupt enemy coordination and create opportunities for the mission to continue. This required leaving her concealed position and moving to locations that would provide better firing angles but increased her own exposure to enemy fire. The Movement between positions required careful timing and route selection. Sarah had to cross open ground while remaining undetected by enemies who were now actively searching for threats. Her small size and practiced stealth techniques allowed her to move through areas that would have been impossible for larger soldiers to navigate without detection. Each movement was calculated to bring her closer to optimal firing positions while maintaining the element of surprise. Her new position provided clear sightlines to multiple enemy groups, but also made her more vulnerable to return fire once her presence was discovered. Sarah understood that she would have a limited window of opportunity before enemies located her position and began concentrating fire on her location. Every shot would need to count, and her ammunition management became more critical than ever. The engagement began with Sarah targeting the enemy's communication personnel and leaders. By eliminating these key individuals first, she could disrupt their coordination and prevent them from effectively responding to her attacks. Her first targets were chosen not just for their tactical importance, but for their positions relative to other enemies, ensuring that each elimination would create maximum confusion and disruption. As enemy fighters began falling to Sarah's precise shooting, confusion spread through their ranks. They knew they were under attack but couldn't determine the source or direction of the fire. Sarah's muzzle flash suppressor and carefully chosen firing positions made it extremely difficult for enemies to locate her, even as their numbers continued to diminish with each precisely placed shot. The psychological impact of Sarah's attack was as important as the physical casualties she was inflicting. Enemy fighters found themselves under fire from an invisible opponent who seemed capable of striking anywhere in the compound. This uncertainty undermined their confidence and made coordinated action increasingly difficult. Some fighters began abandoning their positions to seek better cover. Exactly the kind of disruption Sarah needed to create opportunities for her teammates. With enemy attention focused on trying to locate and neutralize the hidden sniper, Sarah's teammates found opportunities to resume their advance through the compound. They moved quickly from building to building, rescuing additional hostages while Sarah continued to eliminate threats from her concealed position. The coordination between team members was seamless, with Sarah providing real-time intelligence about enemy movements and positions. As the engagement continued, Sarah faced the challenge of maintaining sufficient ammunition, while continuing to provide effective support for her teammates. She had already eliminated more than a dozen enemies, and her magazine was approaching half empty. The remaining shots would need to be even more carefully managed to ensure she could continue providing cover until all hostages were secured and the team could extract safely. The enemy's response evolved as they began to understand the tactical situation. Unable to locate Sarah's position directly, they started firing suppressive bursts toward areas where they suspected she might be concealed. This random fire wasn't accurate enough to threaten her directly, but indicated that her concealment advantage was diminishing as enemies became more desperate and aggressive in their search. Sarah adapted her tactics accordingly, changing positions more frequently and selecting targets based on their immediate threat to her teammates rather than their strategic importance. The engagement had become a race against time, with mission success depending on eliminating enough enemies to allow safe extraction while avoiding detection and return fire from increasingly alert opponents. During a critical moment in the engagement, Sarah observed enemy reinforcements moving to surround the building, where her teammates were securing the final group of hostages. These reinforcements represented a significant threat that could trap her team and result in mission failure. However, engaging them would require Sarah to expose herself to return fire from multiple directions, significantly increasing her own risk. Without hesitation, Sarah repositioned to engage the reinforcements before they could complete their encirclement. This movement required crossing an area with limited cover, while multiple enemy fighters were actively searching for her position. The risk was enormous, but the alternative was allowing her teammates to be trapped with no means of escape. The engagement with the reinforcements tested every aspect of Sarah's training and natural ability. She needed to eliminate multiple targets quickly, while moving between firing positions to avoid return fire. Each shot had to be perfect, as missed rounds would reveal her position without reducing the enemy threat. The precision required was beyond what most soldiers could achieve even under ideal conditions, let alone while under fire and moving through difficult terrain. Sarah's performance during this phase of the engagement was extraordinary by any measure. She eliminated 7 enemy fighters in rapid succession, while changing positions 3 times to avoid detection. Her ammunition management remained disciplined despite the intense pressure, with each shot carefully aimed and effectively placed. The enemy reinforcements were neutralized before they could threaten her teammates' escape route. With the immediate threat eliminated, Sarah provided covering fire as her teammates extracted with all rescued hostages. The final phase of the mission required careful coordination to ensure that everyone reached the extraction point safely while avoiding any remaining enemy forces. Sarah's role shifted from active engagement to protective overwatch, ensuring that no surviving enemies could threaten the successful completion of the mission. As the exercise concluded, Sarah realized she had fired 28 of her 30 rounds, eliminating more than 20 enemy fighters while enabling the successful rescue of all hostages. Her performance had turned what appeared to be an impossible scenario into a successful mission through exceptional marksmanship, tactical thinking, and leadership under extreme pressure. The watching instructors had witnessed something remarkable, even by the standards of their elite training program. The debriefing session following the exercise was unlike any that Master Sergeant Rodriguez had conducted in his 15 years of training elite soldiers. The other candidates sat in stunned silence as the instructors reviewed footage from multiple camera angles, showing Sarah's performance throughout the mission. What they witnessed challenged fundamental assumptions about combat effectiveness and individual capability under extreme pressure. Colonel Morrison had flown in specifically to observe the final evaluation, and he found himself reviewing the footage multiple times to fully comprehend what had occurred. Sarah's elimination of over 20 enemy fighters with a single magazine, while enabling a successful hostage rescue, represented a level of performance that exceeded even optimistic expectations for the exercise. The precision, tactical awareness, and decision-making she had demonstrated set new standards for what was considered possible in such scenarios. The statistical analysis of Sarah's performance revealed the extraordinary nature of her achievement. Her accuracy rate exceeded 93%, despite engaging targets at various ranges under combat conditions while frequently changing positions. Her ammunition management had been nearly perfect, with only 2 rounds remaining unused at the mission's conclusion. Most remarkably, her tactical decisions throughout the engagement had consistently improved the overall team's chances of success while minimizing risk to hostages and teammates. Rodriguez explained to the assembled group that Sarah's performance represented the convergence of exceptional natural ability, intensive training, and the kind of mental toughness that couldn't be taught. Her success wasn't just about marksmanship, though her shooting skills were clearly extraordinary. What set her apart was her ability to process complex, tactical situations rapidly while maintaining emotional control and making optimal decisions under life-threatening pressure. The other candidates struggled to comprehend how someone they had initially underestimated could demonstrate such overwhelming superiority in the most challenging aspects of military operations. Jackson, who had been among the most skeptical about Sarah's capabilities, found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about combat effectiveness. The traditional metrics of size, strength, and aggressive attitude had proven less important than precision, intelligence, and tactical thinking. Sarah's success in the final evaluation secured her placement in the military's most elite Special Operations Unit. This assignment came with both tremendous opportunities and equally significant responsibilities. She would be working with the most skilled soldiers in the military on missions that could have strategic importance for national security. The margin for error in such operations was essentially zero, and the consequences of failure could be catastrophic. Her new unit operated from a classified facility where security clearances were required for virtually everything. The soldiers assigned to this unit represented the absolute pinnacle of military training and capability. Sarah found herself among individuals who had distinguished themselves in the most challenging combat environments around the world. Here, her previous achievements were simply the entry requirements rather than exceptional accomplishments. The unit's commanding officer, Colonel Sarah Chen, was herself a legendary figure in special operations circles. She had led successful missions in some of the most dangerous locations on Earth, and had a reputation for selecting only the most capable soldiers for her team. Chen's initial briefing for Sarah was characteristically direct and focused on the realities of the missions they would be undertaking, Chen explained that the unit specialized in operations that conventional forces couldn't accomplish, often involving precision strikes against high-value targets in complex environments where collateral damage couldn't be tolerated. These missions required soldiers who could operate independently while maintaining perfect coordination with team members, often in situations where communication was limited and split-second decisions determined success or failure. Sarah's first operational assignment came within weeks of joining the unit. Intelligence reports indicated that a terrorist organization had established a training facility in a remote mountain region where they were preparing for attacks against civilian targets. The facility was heavily defended and located in terrain that made conventional military approaches extremely difficult. The mission required a small team to infiltrate the area, gather intelligence, and eliminate key targets while avoiding detection by local security forces. The mission briefing revealed the complexity of the operational environment. The terrorist facility was built into natural cave systems that provided excellent protection against airstrikes and made ground assault extremely hazardous. Multiple escape routes and defensive positions had been carefully prepared, and the terrorists were known to be well armed and experienced in mountain warfare. Intelligence estimates suggested the presence of 40 to 50 enemy fighters with access to heavy weapons and sophisticated communication equipment. Sarah's role in the mission focused on providing precision fire support while the team gathered intelligence and identified priority targets. Her position would be critical for mission success, as she would need to eliminate sentries and guards without alerting the main enemy force while maintaining overwatch for teammates operating in extremely dangerous terrain. The margin for error was essentially non-existent, as any mistake could result in the team being trapped in hostile territory with no possibility of extraction. The infiltration phase required the team to cross 30 miles of mountainous terrain while avoiding detection by both enemy forces and local security patrols. Sarah's equipment load included specialized precision rifles, advanced optical equipment, and communications gear that would allow her to coordinate with both her immediate team and distant support elements. The weight was substantial, but her conditioning and determination enabled her to keep pace with larger team members throughout the challenging movement. Establishing her firing position required careful analysis of the terrain and enemy defensive preparations. Sarah spent hours studying the target area through advanced optics, identifying guard positions, patrol routes, and potential escape routes that enemies might use if the operation was detected. Her position needed to provide clear sightlines to critical areas while offering concealment and protection from return fire. The intelligence gathering phase began with Sarah providing overwatch as teammates moved closer to the terrorist facility. Her role required constant vigilance and precise communication to ensure that team members could avoid enemy patrols while collecting the information needed for mission planning. The terrorist organization's security measures were more sophisticated than initial intelligence had suggested, requiring careful coordination to avoid detection. As the mission progressed, Sarah observed increased activity around the terrorist facility that suggested preparations for an imminent operation against civilian targets. Time became a critical factor, as preventing the planned attack might require immediate action rather than the methodical approach originally planned. The mission parameters began shifting from intelligence gathering to direct action, significantly increasing the complexity and risk for all team members. The decision to transition from reconnaissance to direct action came when intercepted communications revealed that the terrorist attack would occur within hours. Sarah's team found themselves in a position where they could potentially prevent significant civilian casualties, but only by immediately engaging a superior enemy force in disadvantageous terrain. The tactical situation required exceptional skill and coordination to have any chance of success. Sarah's preparation for the engagement demonstrated everything she had learned about combat operations under extreme conditions. She studied the target area intensively, identifying priority targets and developing contingency plans for various scenarios. Her ammunition selection was carefully considered, with each round chosen for specific engagement requirements. Most importantly, she coordinated extensively with teammates to ensure that her fire support would enhance their effectiveness while minimizing their exposure to enemy return fire. When the engagement began, Sarah found herself facing the most challenging tactical situation of her career. The enemy force was larger and better positioned than any she had previously encountered, and the terrain provided numerous advantages for defenders, while limiting her own options for movement and concealment. Success would require not just exceptional marksmanship, but tactical thinking that could overcome seemingly impossible odds through precision and intelligence rather than overwhelming firepower. The engagement began at dawn with Sarah positioned on a rocky ledge overlooking the terrorist facility. Through her advanced optics, she could see enemy fighters preparing weapons and equipment for their planned civilian attack. The intelligence intercepts had been accurate, confirming that dozens of innocent lives would be lost if the terrorist operation proceeded as scheduled. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but Sarah's training had prepared her for exactly these kinds of high-stakes situations. Her teammates were positioned closer to the facility, ready to gather critical intelligence and eliminate key targets when the operation commenced. Sarah's role was to provide precision fire support that would enable their success while neutralizing threats that could compromise the mission. The coordination required was extraordinary, as each team member would be operating independently while maintaining perfect synchronization with the overall plan. The initial phase required eliminating perimeter guards without alerting the main enemy force. Sarah began systematically engaging sentries with suppressed precision fire, each shot carefully calculated to ensure immediate incapacitation while minimizing noise and muzzle flash. Her position provided excellent sight lines to multiple guard posts, but also required rapid target acquisition and engagement to prevent any surviving enemies from raising an alarm. As guards began falling to Sarah's precise shooting, her teammates moved closer to the facility's main structures. The terrorist organization had prepared defensive positions throughout the cave complex, with firing ports and concealed positions that would make direct assault extremely costly. However, their preparations focused on repelling large-scale attacks rather than preventing infiltration by a small, highly skilled team. Sarah's ammunition management became critical as the engagement intensified. Each round had to serve multiple purposes, eliminating immediate threats while creating tactical advantages for her teammates. Her shooting was methodical and deliberate, with every shot planned to maximize its impact on the overall mission success. The precision required was extraordinary, as missed shots could reveal her position and compromise the entire operation. The terrorist facility's layout presented unique challenges that tested every aspect of Sarah's training. Targets appeared at various elevations and distances, often partially concealed behind natural rock formations or artificial barriers. Wind conditions in the mountain environment created additional complications, requiring constant adjustments to maintain accuracy across different ranges and angles. Sarah's ability to process these variables rapidly while maintaining perfect shot placement demonstrated the exceptional skill level she had developed as her teammates penetrated deeper into the facility. Sarah detected movement indicating that enemy reinforcements were mobilizing to counter the infiltration. Multiple groups of armed fighters were converging on the area where her teammates were operating, creating a potentially catastrophic tactical situation. The enemy force was larger than intelligence estimates had suggested, with more sophisticated coordination than expected from a terrorist organization. Sarah's response to this development would determine whether the mission succeeded or resulted in disaster. She needed to engage multiple enemy groups simultaneously while maintaining overwatch for her teammates and preserving enough ammunition for continued operations. The tactical complexity required split-second decision-making about target prioritization, engagement sequences, and ammunition allocation across multiple simultaneous threats. The engagement escalated rapidly as Sarah began targeting the converging enemy reinforcements. Her position provided clear sight lines to multiple approach routes, but engaging enemies at various locations would reveal her presence and invite concentrated return fire. Each shot needed to eliminate a genuine threat while contributing to the overall tactical situation that would enable mission success. Sarah's shooting during this phase demonstrated mastery of combat, marksmanship under extreme pressure. She eliminated targets at ranges from 100 to over 600 meters, while rapidly shifting between firing positions to avoid detection. Her accuracy remained consistently high despite the complexity of engaging multiple groups simultaneously while coordinating with teammates through radio communications out the air. Psychological impact of Sarah's intervention became evident. As enemy coordination began breaking down under the pressure of casualties from an invisible opponent, terrorist fighters found themselves under precise fire from an unknown location, creating confusion and hesitation that provided critical advantages for her teammates. The enemy's numerical superiority became less relevant as their ability to coordinate effective responses diminished. As the mission progressed, Sarah faced increasingly complex tactical decisions about target selection and engagement priorities. Enemy leaders were attempting to organize coordinated responses to the infiltration, while other fighters were preparing the weapons and equipment for their planned civilian attack. Sarah needed to balance immediate threats to her teammates against the broader mission objective of preventing terrorist operations against innocent civilians. Her solution demonstrated the strategic thinking that separated exceptional soldiers from merely skilled ones. Sarah began targeting key personnel whose elimination would disrupt both the immediate tactical situation and the terrorist organization's ability to conduct future operations. These targets were often more difficult to engage due to their positions and protective measures, but eliminating them would have maximum impact on mission success. The engagement reached its climax when Sarah's teammates located the terrorist organization's weapons cache and command center deep within the cave complex. This discovery confirmed that the planned civilian attack would have been devastating, with sophisticated explosives and weapons capable of causing massive casualties. However, securing the area required eliminating remaining enemy fighters while preventing the destruction of critical intelligence materials. Sarah's final phase of the engagement required maintaining suppressive fire against multiple enemy positions while her teammates secured the weapons cache and gathered intelligence materials. The enemy fighters were now aware of her general location and were attempting to coordinate return fire while defending their most critical assets. The tactical situation demanded perfect execution from all team members to achieve mission success without casualties. Her ammunition count was now critical, with fewer than 10 rounds remaining in her magazine. Each shot had to be perfectly placed to eliminate genuine threats while conserving enough firepower for emergency situations. Sarah's discipline in ammunition management throughout the entire engagement had enabled her to maintain combat effectiveness even as the tactical situation became increasingly demanding. The final enemy fighters were eliminated as Sarah's teammates completed their intelligence gathering and prepared explosive charges to destroy the terrorist facility's capabilities. Her last shots of the engagement eliminated sentries who could have threatened the team's extraction, ensuring that all mission objectives were achieved without compromise. The precision and effectiveness she had maintained throughout the operation exemplified everything she had learned about combat excellence. As the team prepared for extraction, Sarah conducted a final assessment of her ammunition expenditure. She had fired 28 of her 30 rounds, achieving an elimination rate that exceeded even her previous exceptional performance. More importantly, her shooting had enabled the successful completion of a mission that prevented significant civilian casualties while gathering intelligence that would prevent future terrorist operations. The extraction phase proceeded without incident, with the terrorist facility's destruction eliminating the immediate threat, while providing strategic benefits for ongoing counterterrorism operations. Sarah's performance throughout the mission had demonstrated that exceptional skill and tactical thinking could overcome seemingly impossible odds, validating every aspect of her training and natural abilities. The mission's success reverberated through the highest levels of military command, but for Sarah, the immediate aftermath was surprisingly quiet. As her team returned to base, she found herself processing the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The terrorist attack that would have killed dozens of civilians had been prevented, and intelligence gathered from the facility would help prevent future operations by the same organization. Colonel Chen's debriefing was characteristically thorough and professional. She reviewed every aspect of the mission, analyzing decisions and outcomes with the meticulous attention to detail that made her unit so effective. When she reached Sarah's performance, Chen paused to emphasize the exceptional nature of what had been achieved. Eliminating 50 enemy fighters with a single magazine while enabling mission success represented a level of combat effectiveness that established new benchmarks. For individual soldier performance, the intelligence materials recovered from the terrorist facility revealed the scope of the threat that had been eliminated. Plans found in the command center showed that the organization had been preparing coordinated attacks against multiple civilian targets, with casualty estimates in the hundreds. Sarah's precision shooting had not only enabled mission success but had directly prevented a humanitarian catastrophe that would have had international implications. Word of the mission's success reached the Pentagon within hours, where senior officials struggled to comprehend the tactical details of what had occurred. The idea that a single soldier could eliminate 50 enemies with 30 rounds while operating in complex terrain against a well-prepared enemy force challenged conventional understanding of combat capabilities. Military analysts requested detailed reports and video documentation to study the tactical innovations that had made such performance possible. Sarah found herself summoned to Washington for briefings with officials who wanted to understand how her exceptional performance could be replicated in training programs for other soldiers. Her explanations focused on the systematic approach she had developed for combat shooting, emphasizing the importance of tactical thinking over raw firepower. She stressed that her success came from careful preparation, disciplined ammunition management, and the ability to process complex, tactical situations rapidly under pressure. The Pentagon meetings led to requests for Sarah to participate in developing new training programs that could help other soldiers achieve higher levels of combat effectiveness. Military researchers were particularly interested in her methods for maintaining accuracy under stress and her approach to tactical decision-making in complex environments. Her insights would be incorporated into advanced training curricula for special operations forces. Recognition for her achievements came in various forms, from formal commendations to informal respect from fellow soldiers who understood the significance of what she had accomplished. However, Sarah remained focused on her operational responsibilities rather than the accolades. She understood that exceptional performance in one mission was only meaningful if it could be sustained across multiple operations, under various conditions. Her next assignment involved training a new generation of special operations soldiers, sharing the knowledge and techniques that had enabled her remarkable success. Sarah approached this responsibility with the same systematic thinking she applied to combat operations, developing training methods that emphasized the mental aspects of marksmanship alongside the physical skills. Her students learned not just how to shoot accurately, but how to think effectively under pressure. The training program Sarah developed challenged traditional assumptions about military instruction. Rather than focusing primarily on physical conditioning and weapons handling, her curriculum emphasized tactical analysis, decision-making under stress, and the psychological aspects of combat performance. Students learned to approach combat situations as problems to be solved through intelligence and precision rather than overwhelmed through brute force. Sarah's reputation within the military community continued to grow as stories of her exceptional performance spread through various units and training facilities. However, she remained committed to operational excellence rather than personal recognition. Each new mission was approached with the same meticulous preparation and tactical thinking that had characterized her breakthrough performance. Years later, military historians would analyze Sarah's career as a turning point in understanding individual combat effectiveness. Her demonstration that precision and tactical thinking could overcome seemingly impossible odds influenced doctrine development and training methods throughout the military. The principles she had applied in eliminating 50 enemies with a single magazine became foundational elements of modern combat training. The soldiers she trained carried forward her emphasis on intelligent preparation and disciplined execution. Many went on to achieve their own exceptional performances in various operational environments, applying the methods Sarah had developed to different tactical situations. Her influence extended far beyond her individual achievements to shape an entire generation of military professionals. Sarah's legacy was not just the remarkable feat of eliminating 50 enemies with 30 rounds, but the demonstration that exceptional performance was achievable through systematic preparation, disciplined execution, and tactical thinking. Her career proved that physical limitations could be overcome through superior skill and intelligence, challenging assumptions about combat effectiveness that had persisted for generations. The doubters who had questioned whether she could handle full automatic fire had been proven spectacularly wrong. Sarah's achievements demonstrated that combat effectiveness was determined not by size or physical strength, but by skill, intelligence, and the mental toughness to perform under extreme pressure. Her success opened doors for other soldiers who might have been overlooked due to conventional assumptions about military capability. As Sarah continued her military career, she remained focused on operational excellence and the development of other soldiers. Her exceptional performance in eliminating 50 enemies with a single magazine had established her reputation, but her continued contributions to military effectiveness and training would define her lasting impact on the armed forces. The mission that had seemed impossible when it began had become the foundation for a career that would influence military operations for decades to come. The story of Sarah Martinez became legendary within military circles, not just for the statistical achievement of her marksmanship, but for what it represented about the potential for exceptional performance when skill, preparation, and determination converged under the most challenging circumstances. Her example continued to inspire soldiers who faced their own moments of doubt, proving that limitations existed primarily in assumptions rather than reality. In quiet moments, Sarah sometimes reflected on the journey from that first day when Sergeant Thompson had doubted her ability to handle full automatic fire. The transformation from underestimated recruit to elite special operations soldier had required not just developing exceptional skills, but maintaining the confidence to apply those skills when lives depended on perfect execution. Her achievement in eliminating 50 enemies with 30 rounds stood as testament to what was possible when preparation met opportunity under the most demanding circumstances imaginable.